unpacking the curriculum for this program, you will notice that there's a topic there called managing upwards, managing sideways, and managing downwards. You need to be a strategist to do all those things, and that's why we have him on the panel. Alex, welcome to the... I like the way they've reserved the middle seat for him. All right, so here we are, our panelists. We are going to dive into it right away. And the question, let's just test the microphones, please. Are they working?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic. The microphones are working. In the meantime, we shall not interrupt them, so I kindly call on you to jot down, because I will open the floor after the questions I will have asked them. On that note, that's when you will also be able to ask them questions. So kindly jot down whatever, if you have a light bulb moment or if you have something that you need to seek clarity about. And then it's also good to have leadership of NSSF here. That's the other thing. I would also like to request our panelists that whatever we say here remains here. So I'm calling on the Chatham House rules. That way we give freedom and a space, a very comfortable space for our lady leaders this morning to talk candidly. And I believe our leaders will not hold you accountable, but if they need to seek clarity outside this session, please also be available for them to engage you. So I will start with Barbara. What do you think is the most significant barrier to female leadership?
That one is a question that I think a lot of times as women, we feel offended by it. That there are barriers that women have that can't make them leaders. But one thing through my years, and probably let me use a story. How much time do we have for this thing? Because we might get started, and then you're like, Barbara, you're speaking.
Thank you very much, Barbara.
Yes.
I'm giving 3 minutes.
You're giving 3.
Yes. Yes.
So let me.
Sorry?
You can tell me.
Kindly, Alex, that will be very good. You can actually, 2 of us can be time.
So let me give a story, and for the ladies, I need you to understand some of these questions. I think giving a story will help you understand where we are coming from. My first job as a manager, I was 26 years old as the head of marketing for AIG. But before that, I was in a very abusive relationship in the UK. Okay? And I had to find a way to leave that and find my space within the UK. For the longest time, I kept thinking there was nothing good enough for me because of what I was going through at that time. You see, I was told I was worthless, I didn't have what it took. I didn't work for 2 years. You have an MBA, you have all these degrees, 3 degrees, and I'm sitting in the house being abused with a very young son at that time. And that was at that point that I said, let me test the waters. But still, I did not believe in myself because of the situation that I had. Even when I was interviewed from Kampala, I'm in the UK. When I was interviewed, my responses were based off of the situation that was going on in my personal life at that time. So for me, the situation was making me make decisions for my future. Yet the situation was temporary. However, I got the job. I struggled heavily with that job. But within the time I was in AIG, it was the #1 insurance company in the country at the age of 26. Ladies, what is the point I'm trying to make here? One of the major barriers, based out of my experience, has been our social situation out of the workplace. We might not say it, but because naturally we are incubators, we have wombs, we incubate. You give the lady a paragraph, she has a whole book, you know? Naturally we incubate. So a lot of our personal situations tend to come into our decision makings within the workplace, within our businesses. Everything we do, so that is one of the key reasons. I know I'm past my every minute, based out of my experience, that actually deters us from moving from point A to point B. And I'm hoping as we go through this academy, as women, we learn to separate the two for us to be able to thrive. Over to you, Mr. Mukasa.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Well said. First of all, to the panelists, do we agree that there is barrier? Are there barriers? Because I could also be making an assumption. Are there barriers? I should have begun by asking that. I've just been tipped off that we are live on Smart 24 TV. We are live, so just for your information.
No secrets, eh?
So now moving on to Alex. The same question comes to you. From where you stand as a gentleman, what do you think I know you only have 3 minutes, but significant barriers to female leadership?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's a combination of a number of factors. Some are social, just by the nature of our cultures. Women are kind of taken in the direction of being brought up to be humble, and so there tends to be a lack of ambition when it comes to looking for growth up the ladder. But also our own perception of what success is, about going up the ladder, is also something that we should also look at. Is that the only way that we should look at success? So if you look at, generally, if you look at the type of people we have on earth, we have people who are givers naturally, and we have people who are takers. And most of us tend to sit kind of in between. But if you look at the extreme ends, there are more men on the taker's side, people who are willing to tread on others' toes to get to the top, and there are more women on the giver's side. Most of us in between. And for that reason, and that's why you need a culture that encourages diversity, because if you don't take that into account, then even when you're hiring, when you're making decisions on career, if you don't take into account that diversity is important for decision making, then you'll find that the takers in a society where people are supposed to, where women are looked at as more humble, are kind of taking the smaller end of the wedge. So it's a number of factors, but if you look individually into a number of households, mine, I have a sister and a mother, both are doctors. They've done pretty well, and I've not seen any barriers to their growth. So also how people are brought up in the homes is, I think, another factor.
Thank you very much, Alex. It's very interesting because when we're going around the room, I'm glad to say that the ladies here are keen on breaking those so-called barriers. Yeah, so they're good to go. They've already rolled up their sleeves. And exactly what you said, Barbara, this thing of carrying baggage with you and bringing it to the workplace as ladies is very key. So thank you very much for pointing us in that direction. Now I'll move over to our Corporation Secretary, Agnes.
Thank you.
Who I think is it the Legal and Finance Department appears to be well represented here. Do you have anyone from Strategy? Yes. Hey, sorry, my apologies.
Yeah.
My apologies. Over to you, Agnes.
Thank you, Stevens. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Can we greet her again? Remember, we were told when someone greets you,
I'm going to do it again.
Okay,
good morning,
please.
ladies. You see, when you're next to Barbara and her energy levels, So, by the way, Barbara, your energy level, like really.
We can have an Irish coffee and discuss how I can transfer.
Yeah. So I think you're red. You're definitely a red.
Yes, I am.
I'm a blue-green. So for us, we are the chillers. And it's okay. We have different personality types. So when I walked in, I was like, wow, okay. So what happens to us ladies, and these are the barriers we are talking about. I want to use a real live example, is that you look at Barbara and you're like, oh my God, it's the Barbaras of this world who?
Yeah.
But there's Agnes here. You know it. So that's the point. Know yourself.
Yes.
Know who you are, and you can thrive in your space as you are. You don't have to be somebody else. Are there barriers to leadership? Dan, I was very happy with the answer you gave when you talked about you don't understand this. women empowerment issue, female emancipation. It's true. Sometimes maybe we read too much into these things. So when I had that question, I was like, are there really barriers to female leadership? And we're supposed to use our personal stories. Looking at my career growth, I would say a firm no. Looking at my personal experience, and I want you to think about yourselves as ladies. Think about how you joined the fund, the interview process. Was anything exceptionally done to advantage the gentleman?
No.
Was it? No. That has been my story. I have had the opportunity. 26 head of marketing. Weren't there gentlemen competing for that job?
I was the only woman.
Didn't she make it? I became company secretary at 29 for a bank as well. Weren't there gentlemen? And at every stage of my career growth, I've been in a position where a choice had to be made between me and my colleague gentlemen. In fact, throughout that journey, they were better qualified, they had more experience than I did, and I got the job. Why was that? So using my story, frankly, I would say no. Position yourself, grab the opportunity, use it. Yeah. Having said that, the reality is you see fewer ladies at the top. Yes. That's a fact. So in spite of knowing, and I'll tell you, by the way, I think Sheila, is anybody else from HR P&C? We have to adjust people and culture. I want to commend us as a fund for getting here. For those who know, and I'm looking around the room, this has been a journey of almost 3 years for us to get here. Anyone knows? I see. For those who know, you know. And why was that? It's because of discussions like this, where the issue arises and there are varying views in the room, and the dominant view is, can we agree in this room that we have done everything possible to level the ground for our staff? We are not going to favor ladies over gentlemen. We want a well-qualified employee who can deliver the job, male or female. Is that not a position an employer should take? Should they be favoring us? No, no. So that is why it has taken long to even have this happen. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the reality is, whereas on the face of it, there are no barriers, there's something. There is something. It may not be about you as an individual. There is something. So there are constraints, everything. I won't repeat what Barbara and Alex have said in the society that just make it difficult. Some of these things are traditional, they are cultural, they are ingrained in our society. You know, you find we are wired the way we are, and unfortunately many of us fall off the way as we go along the channel. There's motherly responsibilities. Barbara's story. You think it's easy to come from that, to come to work after a night of battering, whether physical, emotional, and put your best foot forward. It's not easy. Guys don't have the same impact, although increasingly, surprisingly, during COVID, you saw the stories of gender violence, and men were the ones, things are changing, eh? So to your point again, Diana, the boy child, we are getting to that point, I think. So, like Barbara said, you know, these are discussions that could go all the way. So in summary, not necessarily. Societal norms have created challenges. They've got to be acknowledged. Eh? So it's one thing to say, as an institution, we are an equal opportunity employer. It's another to acknowledge the fact that in spite of being an equal opportunity employer, the truth is the ladies are not there. Remember our board when it was appointed, there was only one lady. Did you notice? Yes. I hope you did. It was obvious. Yeah? And it took the intervention of the new supervising minister, Minister of Gender and Labor, her mandate, to create a reconstitution that brought more ladies. That's affirmative action. This is affirmative action. It starts with acknowledging that there is a problem that you can do something about, and you do it. Okay? So that is my response. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm really blown away by already the first question that I've thrown to all our panelists. Thank you for that intervention, Agnes. So we shall move to the second. I hope you're taking note of what you're going to ask, because I'm tempted, quite tempted, that I reduce on my questions and give the floor more to you. Yeah, and I would not want to be disappointed, ladies. Yeah, so please back me up on that one. So now the first question this time around, I will throw it to the gentleman, then we shall move to Agnes, and we shall finish with Barbara. How, as a leader, how do you stay mindful of who is at the table and who is missing? Yourself as a leader, as Alex, how do you stay mindful of the people at the table and who is missing? Or even how do you manage those two?
Okay. Well, you're asking William Shakespeare-ish questions. Huh? Okay. Maybe from our own perspective of the team that I work with. I mean, when I joined the fund, we were just what? We were 3 people in my team. Huh? We were 3 men actually, and it was a very strange experience. Huh? Men sitting in a room is very strange. Eh? We don't talk to each other. We just sit there. We get work done. We don't go for coffee. We don't. And quite frankly,
was that around 2017?
Yes, it was slightly before that.
Because that's when I met you,
yes.
and you
so
were very few. Yes.
This is 2015. We were a team of 3 people, and we're all men. And I mean, at that point, I'd really been interested in reading a lot about leadership and things like that. And I started getting interested in the subject of diversity, and how diverse teams are high-performing teams. And part of that question of diversity was really about what women bring to the table. So it's not about one being more superior than the other. It's really about the power of teams and the power of diversity. So consciously myself, when I got the opportunity to expand the team, I've always said that we need more ladies in the team. And I started to research about the benefits that ladies bring, especially when it comes to decision making. And some interesting research is done, and one of the companies that uses data very, very deeply is Google, of course. And one of the things they found is that whenever you're hiring, when you're making hiring decisions, when you constitute a panel, the best number of panelists is usually 5, and you'll want at least 2 women in that panel, at least. And I've found when we've done it ourselves, it actually works. Huh? It actually works. So when we make hiring decisions, that's one of the things that we consciously have been doing. And secondly, is deliberately we've said we need to get more women in. So the team has grown significantly since that time. We're now 16, and I think we have what? I think we have 5 women now. Huh? 5 or 6? 6. Huh? We have 6 women now, and if you come into the office today, right now, you'll see the atmosphere is completely different. Completely. It is very, very full of flavor. It's full of liveliness. And even the way we make decisions is different. Huh? We're making much better decisions. So what it is first of all, just understanding where you are. It's very important to understand where you are individually, but also understanding from the point of view of what makes organizations actually perform, that diversity is very important. Huh? So it's not as if we said when hiring decisions are made, we tilt it in favor of women. But what we do and what we've worked with HR is to find a way of encouraging more women to apply. And for us, that has worked, to be honest. And so having the knowledge of where your situation is important, and how it could get better. I think that has been an important learning from my perspective, at least.
Thank you very much, Alex. And that also brings out the aspect of being vulnerable as a leader. Because by the time you notice that it's three of you and you are at the table and you've done all that background check of how important it is to have women at the table and how decisions have improved, you're looking at yourself, the detail of self-awareness. So thank you very much. I'll now move to Agnes.
What was the question again? You know, he said it's Shakespearean. So how you interpret it, eh?
Let me
I'm
say
sure
it
it could have
well.
any. So the question,
Yes.
how do you know who is?
How mindful are you? Yes, about
How mindful are
yes,
you?
how
So
mindful
for me, that's the bit
people
I
at the
needed.
table and then those who are missing.
Thank you.
Yes.
So that's a bit I needed to focus on at the table. And again, it's about using our experience, eh? Sharing our experience. So I was visualizing a typical meeting, yeah? So you've all been to the boardrooms, you know, the meeting rooms and all that, eh? So being at the table, and the reason I requested Stevens, it's not that I had seen, of course I had the questions, just for emphasis, how are you mindful of who is at the table? And this is in the context of this session, right? And women empowerment and female leadership. We shall use the words there, but we know what we mean, eh? How do you show up as a lady in these sessions? How do you show up? So for me, as a leader and as a lady in a room, yeah, do you have the feelers to know that we are wired? And we'll keep going back to the reality. Biologically, we are different. It's what it is. It's just what it is. So as ladies, our natural tendency, most of us, the Barbaras are the exceptions, eh? Most of us are wired to hold back. Eh? That is the tendency, okay? But how do you show up? Because you must show up. And those are the barriers we are talking about. To ensure that even when you're in the, I think you talked about before I came in, you said, Barbara, I'd ask people to clap for colleagues and all that. Eh? That when I walk out of here, I'll know that there was Barbara in the room. Yeah? So from a leadership perspective, it's being conscious of those differences. So I'll use our example. My ladies are here, Rachel, Joanne. Who else is here? Connie, yeah? The reason we do the can everyone say something approach is to address some of those issues. Because if you don't, there are ladies or even gentlemen these days with very brilliant ideas, but who need to be prompted. Not everyone will put up their hand, okay? And when you don't, so allow people an opportunity to speak. My silence does not mean that I don't have anything to contribute. I may have the most brilliant opportunity, but who said, somebody talked about men talking, Pauline. I think you're the one. The men are good talkers. They will talk. You should be in some of the meetings, eh? When I just joined the fund, I would look at these guys and, oh my God. It's like everyone speaks, wants to, did you say we are being recorded? Some of these things, eh? Yeah, I wish it wasn't live, eh? I would share some anecdotes, eh? But it's like everyone wants to speak on top of the other, you know? Now, as a lady, first of all, some of us are naturally soft-spoken. I'm not going to subject myself to that, you know? So how do you, first of all, as a leader, enable me to come to the table practically? But also, how do I come to the table knowing the constraint that I'm dealing with? Yeah? So that's why I said that question, depending on how you approach it. So it could be the practical application of me in the room, knowing that I can determine. So by God's grace, I thank God I've reached a point where I will speak anyway, you know, and if we have to stand up or to shout, okay, we don't have, but does it have to come to that? Really? No. So now as leaders, because the reality is you're all leaders in your different spaces, can you be mindful of some of these things and try to innovate around ensuring everybody's voice is heard, especially the vulnerable? And we've agreed that the vulnerable will usually be the ladies because of how we are wired anyway, you know? But then there is also, when you're in the room, of course, you don't speak for the sake of speaking. It's got to be constructive, objective input, okay? So that you don't speak, use the word anyhowly, in quotes, eh? So being mindful of who is in the room is that. So to Alex's point, then that informs issues of strategy, strategic intervention, hence interventions like these, where now the employer says, how do we help our ladies to show up? Do we need to skill them to break these fears, to ensure that the men, and by the way, I think we need to address the issue of the men, that the men learn how to listen and speak, you know, be empathetic, yeah? So there are various ways and responses to the question, but we can build on it later in the discussion bit. Eh? So thank you.
Thank you very much, Agnes. Well put. Yeah, and we shall, anyway, it's being relayed live. I was going to say would have to negotiate with Smart TV so that we can cut out certain things. All right, very well. Now, over to you, Barbara.
Well, Aggie has put it quite well, but I'm going to approach it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Ladies, showing up does not have to be in the boardroom. A lot of us think that if we have to show up, or if I have to be mindful of who is showing up, I have to see you in a boardroom. That one is the end in my, is what do you call it? One of those things. One thing we have over men is how we execute a project or something we've been given. For me to be mindful about someone, I look at what you do out of the boardroom. That for me tells me who you are, okay? I look at how you treat the tea girl. I look at how you treat the guard at the door. I look at how you treat the fleet drivers. And that is how I look at people who I can work with in terms of, especially where leadership is concerned, because those are the first traits that will tell me if you'll be that empathetic leader, if your emotional intelligence is on point, if I can throw that around, but in actuality what it is how do I mind other people's emotions and my own? And how can I help them advance and thrive? Everything about me is, if you're to work with me, or if we are to be together in a room, I need to see how you treat others. When they say there are committees, and I don't know how NSSF does it, but I think you had mentioned it, Alex, that there's a committee, I don't know, for a staff party. Do you show up? Because a lot of us at the end of the day, when we put out, jobs or whatever, I'm like, I'm not considered, I wasn't, but were you seen outside of that job thing that you're trying to apply for? Were you seen outside the, are you the kind of person that goes in the department and greets everybody in the morning? Guys, it's not about what I'm doing. It's about how I treat others and how I make them feel. Because then Aggie will be like, hey, no, Ruth, I like Ruth. Every morning she comes by and says hi. That she will never forget. Alex will never forget something simple. Even when you're having coffee, hey, Alex Mnanga, have you had coffee? Simple things. I'm not saying buy yourself into someone's life. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying, what do you do differently from the mundane to help your fellow colleague, and not colleague at Exco, all the way from the tea girl to the guard to your subordinate? How do you treat them? So for me, if I am to look at people that, as a leader, even he knows, because we've done that, when we were even choosing people for my board and things like that. Those are things I look at. You mention a name, I tell you no. Because in this space, he screamed at the waitress. How can you come and work on my board? This is philanthropy. We are dealing with people. So how do you show up? I like how the way you show up. You don't have to scream like Barbara. Oh, in a board I can make that room quiet. I can. But not everybody is Barbara. And we don't have to use brute force. But I can tell you there are so many times I've sat with women in a room, and someone says, first, hang on, we need to listen to Ruth. Not because Ruth is loud like Barbara, but because of the things she has been doing out of the boardroom. That, ladies, is very critical. The things we do when people are not watching are what are most critical for you to sit in that boardroom, not your job description. I think that's what I can say to that.
Stevens, I just want to add something. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Thanks, Barbara. Thanks, Alex. So just as you submitted, so being at the table is also about being part of the team, right? And the team has a mandate to deliver. So delivery. So who is at the table is that person who is going to enable you deliver, right? So if we have targets, for example, our famous BSCs, yeah? Who, for me now as a department head, who can I count on to ensure that we achieve our objectives as a department? That is the person at the table. The person missing is the one who. So delivery. Are you actually throwing in your whole for the team? Are you? Then you're at the table. And you don't even have to speak. And I like the fact that you made it clear. We're not talking about a boardroom. I used it as an example for context. I hope you understand. It is wherever you are. You are at the table in quotes when you're pulling along with the team. You are missing if you're not. And it is evident in the results and outcome. Everyone will see it, okay? And leaders know. They know. You know who is with me and who isn't. Isn't it obvious? You're all leaders, like I've told you. You know. Those are the people at the table. So that's, I thought I should add that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Agnes. Well added, and thank you at the same time, Barbara. In fact, Barbara, when you're speaking, I remembered the quote of Maya Angelou. Because the quote of Maya Angelou says that people will forget what you said, people will forget something else, but they will never forget how you made them feel.
Exactly.
Very, very important. And in you getting them to appreciate how you made them feel, they will always remember you. Yeah. So ties nicely into what Agnes has just said. So I want to ask one final question, and I hope you have questions because I have many here, but I'm also cognizant of the time of our executives on the panel session. Now, panelists, I know we had shared the questions, but this is a bit of a disruptive one, and I know you will speak through it. As leaders who have gone through a lot, could you just tell us, each one of you, 3 things of decisions you made that you regretted later on, and how you turned them around to make them, okay, how can I put it? You know, wherever you've been on your leadership trajectory, when you look back, you can say, I could have done this differently. I'm encouraging you to be vulnerable, and I know you are. For the sake of our people here, it is similar to one of the questions, but I'm sorry I'm disrupting you because we are in agile times. Something, just 3 things of, if you could be vulnerable enough, that you felt, when I was there, I made this mistake. I would want you to avoid it, and this is how it has made me better going forward. Just encouraging you to be vulnerable. So I will start with I will start with Barbara this time round. Then I will come to Agnes, and I will finish with Alex. Then after that question, I will open it up to the floor.
Wow, thank you. 3 things. Why do you want us to take skeletons out of the closet? We had gotten rid of them. But
you know, they say iron sharpens iron.
True.
And many of us, and I believe each one of you here, you have something when you look back. You said, no, I could have done this differently. And actually, when I thought about it, because we are told a number of times that the unexamined life is not worth living. And I liked what Agnes said. This is why we are here. You've been working on it for the last 3 years, and finally it's here. So maybe even for them at Exco, they've seen something and they are saying, the sooner we address it, the better for our leaders who are coming through. So yes, irrespective of the skeletons, we're just requesting you to be vulnerable
And that's okay. I guess that's why we are in this universe, to share our stories so that other people can learn from it and become better people. But I have three things, and naturally, you can see I'm a very strong person. Huh? I have fought heavily to be in the spaces I'm in, because I also come from a very strong family, and I'm supposed to act and be and study certain things so that I can fit into the family norms. And it took me a long time to get out of that, because Barbara had to find herself, and when I did, I said, guys, touche, you will love me anyway. Now we are best friends. But getting out of that, because of that experience, one of the things I used to do, because a lot of the women around me were always, Kakana, don't speak, women are not supposed to, you're too loud, first wait, your outfits, blah, 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 blah. It became, I started hating women. So I stopped having women friends, and even in the job places I was in, I was just hiring men, because there was no nonsense. People who know me, I'm an executor. I don't want at a first wait, listen. No, if we have set out to do something, let's do it. And the men for me are just perfect. No stories, come, we walk, we move, okay? I realized that I lost a lot of my femininity as a woman when I did that. Alex, we love you guys, we love you dearly. But you see, I can't be the only estrogen among testosterone in a room. It kills my vibe as a woman. And I ended up not being empathetic or compassionate. Everything for me, let's get it done. I do not care what we do. So I stepped on a lot of toes. And also, let's remember that in my beginning of my career, I was also facing a very difficult situation, abuse as a woman. So everything I was trying to prove myself. So what did I do? If I don't have to deal with it, let me get rid of it. So I stopped working with women. Like on my table, it was men. Everything I did, it was men. Every time would ask me, I have my friends are men. Because of my situation, I didn't want to deal with it. But you see, I had brought baggage at the workplace. And that destroyed me heavily, because there are so many women's lives I would have advanced that I didn't. I ended up being practically the only person in the boardroom. Because everybody around me, I kept saying no, 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 no. And I liked being in that boardroom with men to prove that I was better. And yet that is not what life is all about. You don't have to prove yourself. You're already great anyway. What are you proving? You see? So the validation issue became a big issue for me. And at that time, I wish I knew better. Because you're not proving to anybody that you're better than them. You are already great in your capacity. You're just bringing your value and adding to it to build something bigger and better. So that was one thing. Of course, I changed now. As you see, I'm all about women. It's all about... So yes. So at least there, it has been a very big learning journey for me, but I had to fight my demons from before for me to appreciate what it is to be a woman of valor and hold other women's hands. So that was one of the things. The other one, there were moments, remember I said I'd be the only woman in the boardroom? So there were moments I kept quiet. Yes, because I was overwhelmed. There were moments I felt, that, do I really need to fight this battle? Anyway, these are guys. I don't think I really need to do this. I kept quiet, and I cost a lot of people their lives. Because when you keep quiet, for example, we had an issue where they were firing people, and if I had said something, we wouldn't have fired those guys. But I kept quiet. I didn't want to deal. And that night, the night before, I had spent some time at the police station because we had a row. Anyway, long story. But I brought that to the workplace. I kept quiet because of what I had gone through. And now, ladies, there's a reason I'm using this story. Because I coach women, and this is something I deal with every day. This is something that women carry every day with, that actually doesn't make them perform the way they should. So I wish I had said that. We had to fire almost 50 people, but really we didn't even have to fire them. They had to go through programs like this to become better. You don't fire somebody because they're not executing. The reason they're not executing is because the environment they're in does not enable them to execute. I kept quiet. So let's not keep quiet. That whole thing of keeping quiet, after that, I have never kept quiet again. And for those that know me, oh, I am loud. I will say what I have to say when I have to say it. Because if you don't speak out, ladies, it's not your life that you're destroying. You are destroying at least 17 people's lives, okay? The last thing, I know our time is limited. There was a point, remember I said I was very, very masculine, going back to Ruth's point, masculine. And I didn't like to listen to stories. Empathy, didn't have time for empathy. Please, we're in the workplace. Then I didn't know. That's why it's critical for us to keep learning. Because the moment you stop learning, you start dying. It is, anytime someone came with me about school fees, I'm like, please do not bring that. I was going to use a French word, but that's the truth, SHIT to the workplace. Don't bring it. I don't have time for it. But then as I was growing up in my career, those two things are intertwined. You are the same person in your home, in your workspace, in your social spaces. You can't be three different people unless if you have what is that? I can never pronounce that disease. Schizophrenia. I can never pronounce that. You can't be three different people. I had to learn how to listen out of the workspace because you cannot deliver at work if you're not okay at home. That one is impossible. Because you can't be two different people. Eventually, the real you, that one that you're hiding, will do what? Will come out. So for me, those are the three things that have helped me become the person I am today. Being more empathetic, more compassionate. Yes, I will listen to all your stories. I'll even tell you take a day or two or a week because I need you, the whole you, to be at the table, if I can use that in this context, when you're happy, because then when you are, you will deliver and you will execute.
Thank you very, very much. Once again, let's put our hands together because that has been a disruptive question, and to see that she's been that vulnerable to tell us some of those things. So now we shall move to Agnes.
Okay, thank you. So the three are one, work-life balance. I did a very and they're all related. The other is prioritization, okay, between self and work. Who is more important? Is it my employer or me? And the third is, like I've said, they're related, knowing when to walk away. So now I'll tell you, I gave the best of my years to my former employer. I had all my kids with my former employer. Now I am naturally wired to commit and be loyal. When I commit all the way. And I am loyal to a fault. And I transferred those values. They are values, aren't they? But you know they can be a bad thing. I transferred those values to my workplace. My family suffered for it. So I'm summarizing, yeah? My family suffered for it. Now God works in mysterious ways because that is when He made it difficult for my husband to be in formal employment. And so he was there because I've always wondered, how did we raise these kids? How on earth, how was it even possible? Because the truth is, I was not there. I would be in office 10, 11, even midnight. I would be in office 6, 7 a.m. I was not giving my family time. Those little young vulnerable kids. And I'm sorry to them, and I still get emotional thinking about it. That was a mistake. When all is said and done, who is there for you? Who is really there for you? And it came up to show in my life in a big way. So, prioritization. So I commit entirely. I get opportunities, job opportunities along the way, good ones. And of course, because I was a very good employee, I deliver, I show up. You can count on me. My employer hangs on to me. And somehow I would let go of very good opportunities. You know, when you get, because you go through the moments, it's natural. You get to a point, you feel challenged, go out, do an interview, excel, get the offer letter in hand, go to boss, I'm leaving. No, you're joking. Yeah. Boss calls the other boss and says, forget about this one. It happened. Very good opportunities, about 4 or 5 times in my career. And because it's like DFCU ran in my blood. Actually, I used to be called Agnes DFCU. And we would joke and say, if you cut you are Barbara Stanwyck, yeah? I would say, if you cut my blood, you will see blue blood flowing. That's how bad it was. Now I say bad. Then I didn't say it. Yeah? And then, fast forward, when I tell you the story of how my last years at DFCU were, that's a regret. And I look back to all that dedication to a point of almost excluding my family. All of it for what? So now when I tell you guys, work-life balance, if anyone wants a story about that, come to me. Work-life balance. These institutions we serve, we are just doing our bit now. It's like a relay. You have a baton, you pass it on. They go on. NSSF is how old now? 30 what years? Do you think anyone in NSSF will remember you? Those who will be here 30 years from now. Who will be the people holding your back? So am I saying you don't commit to NSSF and be loyal to NSSF? Prioritization. Know what matters in life. Like the biblical give to Caesar. You know that. Please remember that. I wish I had known that at the beginning of my career. So I thank God He's given me the opportunity to build relationships with my kids all over again. There was a time when their dad was their best friend. I was not even noticing this. That's how terrible it was. So these days when I see them, if daddy says this, it's okay. I think I'm now their best friend. I think I've come around. But yeah.
And,
thank you.
And you
That's
know,
my experience.
Agnes, you've actually mentioned something. You know, I talked about this from mostly the work arena. Most people, even now, still call me Barbara Stanwyck. And you're right. I would be at work until 1 a.m. in the morning. Okay? In COVID, you are all home. I was at Crested Towers. I'd be the only one. In my mind, it even never dawned on me for what, you see? But now, when I left Stanwyck, with my salary they were telling me they could quadruple, that, what do you mean? Where are you going? To do what? You know? And when I was joining UDB, everyone kept saying, you're going to a what? You're going to a, huh? Your thing is, the negativity already, you know? But it takes, and you're right, prioritizing, but it is the hardest thing to do because, Agnes, whether we like it or not as women, we commit naturally. We commit to something naturally. It took a lot of guts to move from one organization to another, but I can tell you guys, when I moved, I'm now doing more of my personal things, more of Barbara than I ever did when I was with my former employer. And that's how life needs to be when you talk about work-life balance. Even my son is in office all the time without being, hey, your son is in office again, you know, those kinds of things. So I'm glad you mentioned that, but that is a journey that I have taken as well. Work-life balance is very critical. My number in Stanwyck was 208494. I was known as, before I left, the person was already sitting in my chair. So really, same thing in UDB, I'm 668, but at least UDB is giving me a chance to explore myself. So in these things, wherever we are, there should be platforms to explore self for our future self. But ourselves, me first, Caesar next. Huh?
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together for Agnes because she is your colleague, quote unquote, and she's telling you things as they should be. So thank you very much, Agnes. So now we come to, last but not least, Alex.
Yeah, I want to thank Barbara and Agnes for really putting themselves in a vulnerable situation. Very hard, huh? Especially for men, by the way. And very hard question. Huh? So I think one of the things that I'm going to talk about three things which are related as well, is knowing yourself, knowing your weaknesses, and not doing something about it. And I think that's something which I still struggle with, but I'm managing. So some interesting things about office. Office has dynamics. Whenever you're in a team, whether you like it or not, you'll have better relationships with some people more than with others, and that's just human nature. So I mean, in another place, another time where I was working, similar situation, I'd come into the team, and not as a star, but people had high expectations, and yeah, so you're in a team dynamic, and you get closer to some people than others. And sometimes when it's someone of the opposite sex, it causes even more problems. So it's not as if there was an affair or anything like that, but you could see that I had more leanings towards this person than the rest. So at some point when you're making certain decisions, whether it's, and it's not necessarily on careers, but you're making certain decisions, people are seeing that there's a bit of favoritism. Even if it is not there, the perception is very, very strong. Yeah, but I mean, this situation became quite bad in the sense that there are other people in the department who probably like this person more than they should, and that became a very, very delicate situation, which actually cascaded outside the office. Yeah, and so the regret is that you can see yourself going there, you can see what's happening, and you're not doing anything about it. Yeah, so sometimes you have to take a stand as a person and not go there. So that's something which I kind of consciously try to manage right now. Related to that is
Sorry, Alex, if I
Yeah.
have to ask you that, you're talking about defining boundaries.
yes, defining boundaries, but also making a stand.
Okay.
Yeah, making a stand, consciously saying that I better not go
Yes.
beyond here. Related to that, I mean, when we joined the fund, there was a big transformation initiative that we were doing. I think, Stephen, I think that's when you actually got involved. If many of you here, there are a lot of people here who were probably not there, but I know Pauline was there. There was a big thing called Kuboresha. For some time, it was the talk of the fund.
For sure.
And at some point, it really became too big.
Yeah.
But I think where the regret is that it had very good intentions, and the people who are involved in it really made the fund quite an engaged family. So we had people involved in this transformation, but somewhere along the way, I'm trying to find the right words. It was disrupted, and it was disrupted in a very, very bad way. What I regret not doing is, first of all, seeing where that disruption was coming, but a lot of people were, when we could have stopped that from happening. The people took a lot of stick, which they shouldn't have, and being where I was, I think I should have seen that coming. I should have certainly defended people much better. And there was a pivotal day when it was one of the strategy retreats where everything really imploded. And one of the things that I like in terms of learning is that I'm able to laugh at myself. Because now you laugh at yourself, but I remember that morning, I came, I sat at my desk. We used to sit in finance, and that was the coldest morning I've ever sat in finance. Pauline was there, she remembers. And the leaders came in. Patrick was our boss, came in. He tried to put a good spin on it. But what I loved is one of the people who was kind of at the center of the disruption came to me and at my desk and said, Mr. Kuboresha. And we both laughed. I really found it really a good moment, that even when you have these very disruptive experiences, you should be able to look back and learn and actually find the good, the humor in it. It's important, an important learning point. So quickly, the third is really kind of related to the first. We had a situation not recently, where conflict is happening. My natural inclination is to avoid conflict. That is how I am by nature. I could see conflict happening between a couple of partners in our innovation ecosystem. It became very bad at some point, and anyway, we parted ways with one of the partners, a lady, by coincidence. And one day, I was shoppers, and she happened to be coming my direction, and but she saw me. I was hoping she hadn't seen me. She saw me. I took a detour, and then she texted me. She said, "Nice move, Alex." Huh? So yeah. So I just said, man, I have to learn from this. I approached her later, and we had a bit of a laugh over it. And actually, I had breakfast with her yesterday. So there are certain things I'm learning about how to deal with people. You learn every day anyway. Yeah, thank you.
Ladies, let's put our hands together for Alex. I'm also cognizant because Agnes has a burning meeting coming up, and she should be leaving just about now. Actually, she should have left 4 minutes ago because she had told me 11:20, so I'm cognizant of that. Agnes, quick questions to Agnes particularly before we release her. I can already see. Okay, thank you.
Waited a number of years for it.
Yes. Thank you very much, Agnes.
It's a matter after my heart. So.
Thank you so much, Agnes. We don't take that for granted. Once again, a round of applause for Agnes. And please, when you're asking a question, you tell us to whom it's directed, or if you want the entire panel to have their insights on it or outsides, you can also tell us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, our panelists. My question is directed to...
Sorry, once again, since Barbara may have forgotten, maybe Agnes and Alex have an idea of who is in the room. Just tell us your name once again, and then you ask your question.
Rachel Nsenga is my name. I'm manager litigation at NSSF. Thank you so much, especially Barbara and Agnes, for sharing your stories. Some of us relate to what you're talking about. So sometimes we struggle, and I know so many ladies struggle when you're criticized, dealing with negative criticism, especially like when you attend meetings, you're rubbish and what, and I know it has happened to you guys. So sometimes you're better off holding back. So you become actually a quiet person, yet you're not. So how do you deal with that? Re-energize yourself and go back and speak. Because sometimes like when you're shut down and what, you're like, next time I'll just keep quiet. So how are you dealing with that?
I would like to co-create with my panelists. Should we take a round of questions or we answer them as they come? I'm very flexible.
Smart 24, driving business. Smart 24, driving business.
Luxury redefined at Seasand Hotel as you indulge in the splendor of elegant living fit for the royalty that you are. Step into comfort, pampering and blissful customer-centric service as you select from our range of comfy exquisite living quarters furnished to meet with your royal preference. Surrounded by scenic beauty, our tropical setting allows you to escape the glamorous ordeal of city